just gonna sit back here.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm fine, so,
Well, perfect. First things first, do you mind telling me your name?
the whole thing,
Yeah, the whole thing.
Geraldine with a J,
Okay.
Geraldine Brown, and it's Virginia.
Virginia. But you go by Jerry.
Jerry. Oh, only time people call me Geraldine's when I'm in trouble.
Uh-oh. Well, hopefully you won't be in trouble today. And you'll be a big birthday coming up before long, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is your birthday? I want to make sure.
October 28th, 1921 is my date of birth.
That way, whenever the story comes out, I have the
Okay.
right birthday there. So,
I don't think I have your hair right.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not going to. But people wouldn't think if it's perfect, they won't think it's me.
well, perfect. Okay. I'm going to be quiet in the room. Well, tell me just a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Like what?
Start, where did you grow up?
Okay, I was born in Oklahoma City at University Hospital. I went to Edgemere Grade School, Harding Junior High, Classen High School. The year I was a senior in high school, my father was killed in a very unnecessary accident because some idiot left a carload of cattle in a foggy night on the highway, parked with no flares. And he ran under it and was killed immediately.
So that was your
I went to
senior year?
grade school at Edgemere, a junior high at Harding, and then high school at Classen. And then in my senior year was when Dad was killed, and I went on to Stillwater to school and finished 4 years of college.
What did you study?
And I'd been out a month when I was pulled into the Army. I enlisted. Girls weren't drafted then. I enlisted, and I reported for duty in first day of July. Fourth day of July, I had KP and had to clean out the grease trap. And until you've cleaned the grease trap, you don't know what ugh is.
So, what did you study at OSU?
What?
What did you study in Stillwater?
Education, elementary education.
So why did you enlist in the military at that time?
Why did I enlist? I just always thought, in my family, we went to college. Girls did. And I always wanted to be a teacher from the time I was a little girl. I kept the kids in the neighborhood in school all summer.
That's amazing. So why did you enlist in the military?
They began to draft fathers, and I didn't think kids should be raised without a father. And I thought maybe if enough single women enlisted, then fathers wouldn't have to go.
So it was for the children.
Well, it really was because it appealed to me. I wanted to be served. And everybody in World War II, everybody was very dedicated to the country. And if one dad got to stay home because I enlisted, well, then one bunch of kids had a dad.
So do you think the accident with your father was the reason you went into the military? Was kind of
Well, it was the catalyst that set it off. At the moment, I was going to college, and that was the aim. And I was never allowed to hold a job when I was growing up because it was during the Depression, and my dad said, "You don't need the job. I can feed you, and you have a good place to live." And I did babysitting in the neighborhood and little things like that. But he would not let me take a job because he didn't want some family to be hungry. That's just the way he was.
So what did people say when you decided to enlist?
Well, some people thought it was great, and other people thought, a girl in the military? Times were different, you know, girls were girls then, not. It wasn't such a mixed standard.
Were you in the Women's Auxiliary Corps?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in college, you said you took a photo class.
It just, yeah, because it was an easy class and everybody liked the professor, and I needed a couple of more hours, and it was just a 2-hour class, and it was just going to be lots of fun and not hard. And I had 16 hours, and so the rest of it, it was just, I needed that much more to have a full semester, and I was ready to, and then people, you graduated in 4 years, and that's what you did, for the most part.
Yeah. So what was it like developing film back then? Because, you know, now, I mean, everything's digital, but what was it like back then?
Well, it was all done by hand. The printers were huge. The rolls of film had 300 and something negatives on it, and they were 10 by 10, and they were trimetric photography. And the ones I was working on at that day came out of the Enola Gay, and there was a central film and then a right and left of light film. So you got horizon to horizon, what they were flying over, and you traced the bomb as it dropped down to the ground. So we saw what, as I was developing, I saw what the film had done. And that's when I started saying, come look at this, come look at this. And then very shortly, we were locked down out of everything. I mean, even when the two of us, or the three of us that were working in the dark room, the 3 girls went to the restroom, they went in and cleared it out. We weren't allowed to talk to anybody until it was about almost 48 hours afterwards. And then they put the film out for publicity. It was all very hush-hush. But that's what you did. That was what security was then.
What was your first thought when you saw?
I couldn't believe it, because normally there were parts of buildings gone. In these films, there were little parts of them in the corners and things that were still standing. And I called my partner who was doing the printing, and when we switched off back and forth, and I was, come look at this, all the devastation that there is. We just never seen anything like it.
I mean, you had.
And at the same time, you know, we were not allowed to talk about it.
When was the first time you were able to talk about it?
Well, after it was put in all the newspapers.
Yeah.
Shortly after, 48 hours at a time.
48 hours.
Yeah, about. You know.
That must have been the hardest 48-hour secret.
Well, most of the time we were still working, so. And we did top secret stuff all the time, but we still had not really realized how bad it was.
Yeah. And that was the Hiroshima bomb.
Yes.
Okay. Did you do the Nagasaki bomb?
Uh-huh.
You did both of them?
Yeah.
Wow. So how big was, and you were at the Pentagon when this happened?
Yes.
So it was just a photo lab that?
Well, it was the photo intelligence lab of the war thing in the Pentagon. And it was a great big lab. There were a lot of us in there. It just happened that my crew did that particular, but we did a lot of top, and they were all numbered. You kept count, and they kept records, and that's what they had for records in those days.
How many photos do you think you developed?
Oh, my word. I often did over 1,000 a day,
Wow.
but there was 360 on a roll.
Yeah.
So-
you were doing 3 rolls a day, which,
Yeah, at least.
wow.
But you had to set it up with the printers were oh, half as big as the top of that table, and then there were lights down under, and the films were in big rolls of films. And it was,
I couldn't imagine.
you can't, because we don't have anything like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Before I forget, I'll do something real quick. Excuse me. I always have a backup recorder, but I didn't get it on this one. There we go. Wait for these people to get out. So how long, when did you first enlist? Do you remember the day?
Probably the middle of June in 1943, because I reported for duty the 1st of July.
Okay. And then we're there, how long did you stay?
I got out and well, let's see, what was the date at the end of the war in August?
August 5th, right?
And I came home I was home over the Thanksgiving. I was home the day before Thanksgiving. I got home.
So that was nearly, a 2-year stint.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you ever think you would be able to do that, or?
No, it was just. I saw it and I'd read all of what was, and I thought, well, see about it. And by the time I got out, I was enlisted.
How did it change your look on life? Like from after you left the military,
I don't know, because we were always taught that family and country came first, and it was responsibility. I don't know that it changed it, except that it gave me a much broader look of life to have been exposed to all that stuff, because in Oklahoma then, Oklahoma City was about the biggest place I'd gone, and I grew up there, so.
Yeah, wasn't that big compared to D.C. at that time.
Well, I did end up in Washington when I was in service.
Oh, you did?
That's
Yeah.
where I did that printing. It was just a whole lot bigger than Oklahoma City was. But I'd been at Stillwater at school with that big groups of people, so it didn't.
Didn't bother you at all.
Not really.
So on the topic of being a woman and maybe a pioneer during this time,
Well, something like that, I guess. Yeah.
did you kind of champion for? You said you kind of championed for women to go into the military at that time.
Well, it was unusual. It was just the beginning when we first started. I was among the first women who went into service in this area. I'm probably any place.
Yeah, because I don't think they were allowed in before.
No, they
1940.
weren't. No.
Yeah. So what did you do after the?
I applied for a teacher's job and went to work teaching, and my degree had been in teaching. And I taught the first year, and the next September I got married, and then I didn't work for years because I had a family, and that's.
How big was your family?
Well, I had 2 kids, but I came from a big family. My mother was one of 11, my dad was one of 6, and
I couldn't imagine being one of 11.
well, back then, I guess, I can't either.
Could you imagine having 11 children? Whew.
Oh, no. Thank goodness.
And your dad was one of 8, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Your dad was one of 8?
Yeah. No, let me think.
I have it on the recording.
7.
At 7.
Yeah. There was one girl in the bunch, all the rest were boys.
Did you have any brothers or sisters, or?
I had a sister, 11 years older than I was. And there was a brother in between us, but he died before I was born from membranous croup.
So did you look up to your sister since she was?
Oh, yes, I thought she was the queen of the world. I still do.
What did she do for?
For a living,
Yeah, for a living, or, I mean, what made her?
well, she finished college and she came home and she did a little bit of subbing and she got married and raised a family. As I said, my dad said we were supposed to be taken care of, and women didn't just go to work then like they do now, unless it was really absolutely necessary.
Because most women today, this is a foreign concept to them.
Yeah.
So where did you teach at later on?
Stanwady in Oklahoma City to begin with.
And then where did you taught elementary school?
And yeah, it was elementary school. I taught second grade then. And then after I got married, I didn't teach for a long time.
Okay, then married. And then when did you go back to teach?
Let's see, I started subbing again when Ginger was, oh golly.
She was younger, or?
It was, I was trying to think of what year she was born in. I don't remember, but it was just 4 or 5 years after the war ended.
Oh, okay.
And I just subbed for years until she started to junior high. So until my youngest child started to junior high. And then a job came up that they offered me, and I decided I'd like it, so I took it.
Where was that at?
In Edmond.
In Edmond. So you worked for Edmond Public Schools?
Yeah, that's the only place I ever taught. After I left Stanwady in Oklahoma City.
But you were only there, what, a year or two?
About a year,
Yeah.
not any more than that.
Well, teaching second graders, that's got to be a admirable task. What did you teach for Edmond?
What?
What grade did you teach in
Uh,
Edmond?
6th grade first. And then I subbed, and then I went back to teaching and taught 6th grade until I retired. Let's see, if I quit, Sil was 65, so I would have been 55 when I quit for anything except subbing, and I subbed then until I was 90 here in Edmond.
Wow. So I bet you saw the education system change.
Oh, yes, it changed.
How did it change in your eyes?
Probably for the better. It became broader, more things were offered to kids, and
Could you, it's amazing that you said that, because most older people, you know, they think everything's going down the drain, but you see a positive.
yeah, I guess I always have. I can't remember ever. I can remember my mother was sort of negative. She did a lot of positive things, so.
Almost investing in future generations.
Well, it's been fun to see them.
Yeah.
And I still occasionally have young people who are almost not young people anymore come back to see me, so must have done something right.
Yeah. what was one of your favorite memories from teaching over the years? Do you have one?
Oh, a lot.
What are a few of them?
Oh, playing games on the playground with them, because we did our own playground supervision then. Taking kids to things down at the Oklahoma City auditorium, concerts and things, because our school did that. Having kids come back to see me and bring their kids to my house to introduce me to them. Those are the good memories of it. And I loved it. And I didn't have to do it, and that makes a difference. And Syl always said, I married you to take care of you. You can work if you want to, but you don't have to.
It gave you a passion to do everything, it seems like.
Yeah, I guess.
Even though you didn't have to do it, I mean.
But I like,
You like doing it.
I was going to be a teacher all my life. I lined the kids up in the summer, and we had school, and I was the teacher.
And you taught them, right?
I hope so.
'Cause how would you describe teaching, like the profession? Noble one or?
Noble, fulfilling, educating, productive, hard work.
I bet it is. Teaching college students these days.
Oh gosh, I can't imagine.
I teach federal government
Oh.
right now, so everything is heightened
Yeah.
with things, but it's a lot. So to the generation now and to people now, I mean, what are some advice that you would give them?
Follow your passion, be dedicated. And just work, I guess, with the idea of having a good fulfillment and adding something to the world. And enjoy life. Am I sounding like me, I hope?
You're doing
Okay.
You're doing good. I just want to hear what's in your heart.
Well, I taught because I taught because I wanted to, not because I had to. There's a difference in whatever you do. But I married a man who thought it was his responsibility to take care of me and the family. And he also thought it was my responsibility to keep the house going. And I always had help with the cleaning and things, but I mean, the responsibility of it was mine. He went out and made the living, and I managed the house and the family and the kids.
And it worked well.
Yes. We had a very happy marriage.
How long were you married?
Oh, 40 years at least.
Where did y'all meet? Where did you meet him?
His big brother lived one house away from me, and his niece and I were good friends, and he would come home from his job to their house some, and he would just take the two of us to a movie or something. And he was just being nice, and he was 11 years older than both of us, and being a good uncle, and it developed into more than that.
What age did you marry? Do you remember?
Well, let's see, I got out of college when I was 21, out of the Army. I was 24.
24.
That's also long ago.
I know I'm asking some tough questions today. How is church?
I grew up in St. Luke's in Oklahoma City, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I loved it. I also went to the youth group at First Methodist Church, because they were more fun than the ones at St. Luke's were. The ones at St. Luke's, so many of them came from very wealthy families, and those of us that were just ordinary kids were sort of. So I went to the youth group down at First Methodist Church, and I went to everything else at St. Luke's.
First United Methodist OKC? First United Methodist in Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were born and bred a Methodist all your life, right?
Yes.
And you've been going to church at First United Methodist Edmond for...
Ever since I got married and moved here, that's where we started going, because I'd gone to the Methodist church in Oklahoma City.
So you were... So you've been going there, I'm trying to think how many years, 75 years?
I guess.
Yeah.
75, wow.
Long time.
I have to tell that to, I know Pastor Sam.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember Leroy Kaufman that went there.
yeah.
I lived with him and helped him out because he had macular degeneration and all that. And I know Donna Beardmore and Brad and all them. So, and I always make it to the Christmas performances there.
Good.
Yes.
And
We always have wonderful music in that church.
it was amazing.
There's no better music in Edmond in a church than at our church. That pipe organ is just magnificent. And we've always had a good organist, so.
Yeah. Ask her about Sil and how
Sil?
Sil and meeting her at the train station.
I didn't,
How did you meet Sil?
No, Sil in the train station.
Sil in the train station.
oh, the night I got off of the train when I had been discharged from the Army, I did not know he was home from the Pacific yet. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got off of the train expecting somebody in my family to meet me, and he was standing there on the platform waiting.
But you weren't married at that point.
No. No, I didn't get married till after I finished college and my time in service.
Probably the last person you thought that would be there.
Yeah, I knew he would, but because the war was over, but I did not know he was home yet.
What did he do? You said he was in the Pacific?
Yeah, he was a CB and he was in the Pacific primarily.
Do you remember the first time you fell in love with him?
Oh gosh, probably when I was 18 or 19 years old. And he was my best friend's uncle, young uncle. And I thought he was wonderful.
You just had to wait 6 years to get him.
Yeah.
So, throughout your life, what's the one thing you've learned personally?
Be honest and fair and follow the golden rule if you want to be treated that way.
And for those who don't know what the golden rule is, do you mind saying
They
that?
have a hard time. And for that, do unto others as they would do unto you. It works out like that. If you can't do something nice, don't do nothing at all.
So Martha was telling me you lived in your home up till,
Yes,
how long did you live up to your home, in your home?
that one.
Yeah,
Oh, well, one till I did this and got in the hospital. So,
When
what,
did you
how,
live there?
how old am I?
90, almost 99.
In, so,
so you lived up till not, this year.
yeah,
About a month ago.
yeah.
So is there any other memories that you can think of that just stand out in your life that,
Yeah, marching behind President Roosevelt's casket.
tell me about?
When he died, I was in service, and my company happened that we were called, and we were the first company behind the carriage. And that's a highlight. A thing I really remember doing down in Washington D.C. So when I was in service.
Oh, 1 second. I have to listen for those sounds. I bet that was that a sad day for?
Yes, for the country, but we were very proud of him too.
I bet that was, because he died before the war ended, right? He died before the war ended, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I have to remember my history.
Good thing you can. Today, I'm not sure I do.
Hey, that's right. Well, you can always call me, and if you remember things, you can always tell me.
Yeah.
Stories you remember or anything like that. What would you tell to women today?
Tell women,
Yeah.
follow your heart. I hope to make the world a better place and serve country and God. And then you'll serve the rest that you should.
Why did you open that? I would have to just shove it through the.
I'll take the paper.
We're going to have to take a
And
quick
are
break.
you gonna
Okay.
take yourself down?
Well, we're going to
to
take a
your
quick
room?
break, I think. Great. Oh, yeah, other memories that you had.
Summers in Creed, Colorado.
What was that about? In Creek? Colorado?
Creed, Creede. It's the headwaters of the Rio Grande. As far as I'm concerned, it's God's world. It's the most beautiful place there is.
Did you just go up there every summer, or what made it special?
Every summer. For many years. That's what we did. And I think about, maybe the third generation. And I have been back not too long ago, and I'd moved back to Creede. I tried to get Syl to stay there. I even went over and applied for a job one summer, and they hired me for the year, and hoping to make him stay that winter, but we didn't. He said, "We're going home." He wanted to come home and play golf.
Well, I bet it had been rather cold there.
Yes. Oh, yeah. One morning it was 16 below. It was cold at Creede, but up in the mountains, the cold it's not the same.
Yeah, I could. That would be a lot for me, but. 1 second. Fixing something on here. Okay, there we go. So So your whole family went up there?
Yeah. I went as a teenager and I took my grandkids.
I may have to go up to this place someday and just see exactly what it's all about.
Yes.
So every summer you
Uh-huh.
took the vacation. Do you have any grandchildren?
Yes.
How many?
Let's see, Ashley and Josh and Ryan, 3, and their wives, and then their kids. So I have several great-grandkids, too.
Do you know how many great-grandkids you have? Do you know how many great-grandchildren you have?
I'm trying to think. Let's see, Ryan has 4, Ashley has 2. I guess that's all. Ashley had kids, Josh had kids, and Ryan did. So 6 altogether.
Yeah. I'm gonna fix something real quick on that microphone. So, let's slip in here real quick. Just make sure that's well. They can be finicky sometimes.
Okay.
Want to get the best sound possible. Okay, perfect. So, I bet your grandchildren are special to you.
Yes. And my granddaughter lives at McKinney. And I've forgotten where Josh is moving to. I just saw him, but oh, they're moving down to South Texas.
Oh, moving to South Texas. Before I forget, do you mind spelling your husband's name? Do you mind spelling your husband's name?
Sylvester G. Brown, and he hated it. He went by Brownie.
Oh, that was what everybody called him?
Uh-huh.
Brownie, B-R-O-W-N-I.
I-E, yeah, because our last name was Brown, and Sylvester just was not him.
Wasn't him. What did he do for a job?
He was owner's relations manager for a Chevrolet dealership in Edmond.
So, but he was a salesman at its finest, right? A salesman at its finest.
Yes. Yeah, you sold goodwill of the company.
Well, I think that gets most anything.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, do you think of anything?
Your grandfather, and you going with your grandfather around Turner Falls.
Oh, when I was a little girl, our family went to Turner Falls in the summer because we were Chickasaw, and that's what we did. And he would take me fishing up above the falls, taught me how to fish with a bent pin with a little bacon on it. Then we'd fry the fish for our lunch on our trip up about. And then, but in the summer then, the whole family, we went, and the children and the women stayed because people didn't have air conditioning. And whichever uncle wasn't working, or young grandson that was a mature man, would come and be the chaperone for that week. And Mother came from a family of 11, so there was always plenty of aunts and uncles. And I learned to swim there when I was 4. My grandfather threw me in and said, "Now swim to me." Backed off, and I did. He told me to, so I did.
Now, You learned quickly.
Yes.
That's the best way to put it. And you were a Chickasaw, right?
Uh-huh. I was just recently, what 2 years ago?
About
2 years, I was inducted to the Chickasaw Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. I bet that was a highlight.
It was for me. And there's stuff's all down at Sulphur at the Chickasaw museums.
Is that where most of your, because I saw some pictures of
Ye-
you in the service.
Yeah.
Are they down there, or
There are some down there, yes.
where is that where most of it is, or?
Yeah, I guess it is.
I didn't know if you still had any, or,
I think I might have some at home, but I'm not sure,
okay.
because I gave them quite a bit. And the kids have some. Ginger has a lot,
Yeah,
so,
because I'd like to get some pictures of you throughout your life and all that kind of stuff, and would want some good copies of that, so.
Ginger's coming up this afternoon, so I might write her a note and leave it with Jerry to give to Ginger, and then she can call me, or I'll just have her call you directly.
she'll just be here for a little while, though,
Yeah,
so.
well, she can call me later, so it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be now. Well, perfect. It's amazing that you have that Chickasaw history.
Yeah.
Here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, she was taken to the call at OSU, wasn't that for the oldest alumni? When we went to Stillwater,
Yeah,
wasn't it for the oldest alumni?
yeah,
And she was honored there at
Oh, wow.
OSU.
and inducted into the Hall of Fame there.
Well, you're just famous.
Yes, she
Yeah, if you just live long enough.
Yeah.
If you just live long enough, you'll be famous. Well, you gotta hit 100, right? At least.
It won't be long, and I better live to be 100 now, or the good Lord's going to have a lot to answer to. Now that I'm, when I'm 98, well, it's time to,
Yeah. Start telling the Lord what you want.
She's gonna make it.
it's my turn now.
Well, I don't blame you. I hope to be that. We'll have a big celebration then.
Yeah. Well, just being alive is a pretty good celebration.
Yeah, I'll leave my number.
Okay.
I think that works. Anything else? I want to make sure.
I think you've done great.
Oh, good, good. I don't want to wake you up from your nap.
Certain age, you can do it anytime you want to.
One day we'll be there, right?
Yeah,
And they won't have to work and all that kind of stuff.
that's right.
Stop that.
Go to school only for fun, like she did.
Well, that's what I'm doing with my PhD, going for fun, right?
Yes.